Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm going to talk about the 5 tips to get started in commercial real estate. Now, it might be like, I've been doing YouTube channels and YouTube videos for the last 3 years. You might be thinking, well, why now? Why talk about the 5 tips? Well, the 5 tips keeps evolving, right? I know I've covered some of this content in the past, but now we seem to be looking at different times, different returns, and really different margins or arbitrage you're going to make between what the bank is charging and what you're going to make in return. So let's talk about the 5 tips now in 2023 when someone's getting into commercial real estate, especially the first time. And now, if you're the first time getting into commercial real estate, there's never been a trickier time to understand the market, and there's been so much information out there, so many new changes, so many old people that used to be old hands at commercial real estate giving up, retiring, and now handing over the baton to new people, right? There's a huge change in the market in terms of wealth, and also now commercial real estate has become more mainstream compared to before, right? So the market's changing, the times are changing, the returns are changing, the type of preference of properties and the tenants are changing, the lease terms are changing, all these changes. So what do you need to get into commercial real estate 2023 and beyond? 5 tips. So let's start with number 1. The number 1 tip of commercial real estate is know your outcome, know your big picture goals, right? Don't do this. Don't go to a buyer's agent and say, here's 200K, find me a property that this is going to be buying. Is that buying my 500K thousand property, 600,000 property? Find me something, as long as it's positive or neutrally hold, I'm fine. Don't do that. That's a big no. Don't do that. No. Instead, look at where you want to be long term from here, right? Where do you want to be? Right, I want to build $50,000 in passive income. I want to build $100,000 passive income. I want to build $250,000 in passive income in 10 years, and that's what I want to do. Instead of then going, I've got 200K, right? Look bigger. Know your goals. Number 1, the most important thing, commercial real estate, know your goals. If you don't talk to someone who's like myself, our company, who's a strategist, who is also a specialist buyer's agent, but work with strategy first, educating yourself, understand your big picture goals before you execute. That's really, really important. Number 1, know your big picture goals. Number 2, be realistic with your expectations. So many people still come to me and say, I want to get 9%, 10% yields in this market. No, those don't exist in a safe environment. If you want to get 9%, 10%, yes, go to a mining town and you'll get them, but they're going to be risky, high risk mining tenants, warehouses in mining towns. They're going to be smaller populations where you're going to get your 9%. It's not going to be safe. Stay in the safe zone. 5 to 7.5% yield is your safe zone. Probably push it to 8% if you know where you're looking, the kind of properties and the towns, right? And you've got to know someone who is doing it all the time, who has the right research in that area. But your 5 to 7.5% is where you need to be, depending on whether you want to focus on growth or your cash flow, right? But instead of going, oh, I want 8, 9, 10%, be realistic, right? Be realistic is what you're buying with what you're going to get. If you want medical tenant, you're not going to get 7.5% even in regional towns, right? Not even in mining towns, you're not going to get that, right? So you're just not going to get it. So forget about that. If you want to buy industrial, right, and you want to get above 5.5% in metro, it ain't going to happen, right? You want to be in self-storage, you're going to need $3 million plus. You want to be medical freestanding, you're going to be $3 million plus. Be realistic. If you've only got 500 to a mil or a mil to 2 mil to spend, be realistic what you can buy, what are the returns, right? And really, that leads on to number 3. The question is commercial real estate still best for me in comparison to residential? Because if I'm getting 5%, why can't I just buy residential? Is it better for me than investing in shares? Is it better for me than investing in business? Know your strategies. Number 3 thing, right? So now we talked about what the number 1 thing is. Know your big picture goals. Number 2, be realistic of what you're looking at. Stay in the safe zone is really, really important. I see so many people take so many risks, and I know they'll get burnt 2 to 3 years down the track. So number 2, stay in the safe zone. Understand your risk profile yourself. Security. What is security versus risk? Stay in the safe zone. That leads to number 3, strategy. Never more important than now. If you're with somebody who is going to help you buy commercial, I don't care if they're family members, I don't care if they're mentors, I don't care if they're buyer's agents. If they say, I can't give you a strategy of how you can get to $100,000 in 5 years, 10 years, or 7 years, don't go with them. Strategy is really important, because no matter how turbulent the market is, you can still rely on strategy, right? And that's the most important thing, is that even if the market is turbulent and you've got interest rate going up, interest rates coming down, you've got returns holding still, even with interest rate going up, as long as you've got the right strategy, know that's going to carry you through the murky water. Strategy is really important. Have your blueprint in place. Know your strategy. Know how to combat the risk if you have a vacancy, if you have capital works, if you have special levies, or combat it if interest rate goes up, interest rate goes down. How do you recycle your deposit from one deposit to the next one? How do you go from first one to second one to third one? Because if you buy the wrong one, the first one, and you get stuck, that is is not where you want to be, because 2 years, you're going to find yourself burnt, unable to move forward. And that's where you go, oh, commercial real estate's not for you. But if you're in the right path, got the right amount of money, invested well, leapfrog effect. That's what you want to do. Strategy. 3 is really important. Invest in yourself and strategy. It might seem a bit slow, but it's going to help your momentum go faster in the future. 4, the criteria of the property is really important, but you can't have it so narrow that you can't find it. I don't want medical tenant in Metro at 10% yield. Never going to find it. It's the unicorn you don't find, right? Build the unicorn portfolio. Understand that. That's why I say being part of build the unicorn portfolio, right? You got to know your property profile. So do I want a freestanding? Can I afford a freestanding property? If I go freestanding, where are my properties going to be? Is it going to be regional? How far regional am I going to be? My large regional towns 50,000 plus, or am I looking at smaller regional towns with 20,000 plus? My freestanding for the money that I have. If I've got $1 million to spend, where do I buy? If I have $2 million to spend, where do I buy? That freestanding property, right? And then the characteristics is like, what kind of tenant do I get for that? What kind of returns? Do I match up my regional versus metro or fringe and work out what that is, right? And is that good enough for me, right? Is 6.5% good enough for me in Townsville? For you, that's a personal choice. For me, don't buy 6.5% in Townsville. That's the wrong choice to make, because the market, we told our lines at 7%. But a lot of buyers agents, they think it's an easy deal to do at 6.5%. But we've been in Townsville since 2016, and we know the yield line right now in this current market, it might have been 6.5% when the buoyant market at 3% interest, but today it should be 7%. And if everyone has that same view, we will return the yield back to 7%. But the problem is there's people out there who are buying at 6.5% thinking it's a good deal, and they're making a mistake. Don't let that be you. So understand, for this return, what is the property characteristic profile? So $1 million, can I buy 7% in Townsville? Can I buy freestanding? Or do I have to be in Bundaberg to do that? Do I have to be in Cairns to do that? Can I be in Wagga to do that? Can I be in Warrnambool to do that? Can I do that in Albury-Wodonga, right? But is that industrial or is that freestanding? What exactly is it, right? So that is what I'm looking at. So that's what you'll need to explore, is property profile and tenant, and really understand that really well, because the more you understand that well and conceptualize it and understand it, the better it is when you do your due diligence, right? Because this flows onto your natural due diligence. This is the pre-due diligence to buying. Before you do the whole, is my tenant paying rent? Well, the thing is, if you don't want a diesel mechanic as a tenant, then there's no point doing DD on it. If you don't want a restaurant as a tenant, if you don't want an office space tenant, then there's no point, right? So really understand that. And just understand that helps you to understand the property profile and also the value of your purchase, right? And then you really start to understand what you can get as the best return on investment. So number 4 is really about understanding property criteria, tenant, property type for you for the first property or the second or the third. And that's backed up by the strategy you have, right? But you understand that, but then you can compare regional versus metro, which is going to give me the best return on investment, because right now, 2023 beyond is all about getting the best return on investment for you. And in order for you to get the best return on investment, you have to understand what you can get with that same amount of money in regional versus metro, and moving forward from that, or fringe, or whatever areas you're looking at. You've got to be able to compare. Then you can make a concise, decisive decision on that, right? And that's what you need to. So that's number 4. And finally, number 5 is returns. So yields, cash flow. How much cash flow do you want to get in return for the money you invested, and also for the growth that you may have in the back end? Now, one of the most important things to remember is 5% of your cost of buying a commercial property or any kind of property. That's your stamp duty, your legals, your pest and building, maybe some other miscellaneous costs. That does not include buyer's agency fees, but you're going to need about 5 to 6% buy-in cost depending on what state you're in, except for Adelaide or South Australia and ACT. But that 5% cost, it is not part of your yield calculations. It's not part of your yield calculations because you get that back as part of the base cost. So you get that back later on when you sell the property. So you buy the property for $1 million, you later on sell it for 1.5. That $50,000 or $60,000 you've spent comes off that capital gains you've made. That $500,000 or $600,000 you've made comes off that before you get your capital gains concessions, right? And that's what I mean about it cannot be calculated as part of your yields, because if it does, you're doing the wrong calculations. You're not comparing apples with apples, because you do get it back. So that's really important. But returns, you got to know. So is my strategy, and this again comes back to number 3, strategy backed up by property type, and now we're talking about returns, right? If you look at a pure return cash flow driven exercise right now, that's why people are getting burned. That's why they're buying properties 1% less than what the market should be, 0.5% what the market should be in town pounds that they don't even know because it looks good on paper. And that is the wrong approach, right? That if you're an educated investor, you won't do that. If you're watching this video, you're not doing that. If you're watching this video, you're connecting with us. You know what you're looking for. You are smarter than the average bear. And I thank you for it. And I thank you for watching this video. But the main thing is here is that when you come to yields, you got to know, is my 6.5% worth it in this market? Am I actually in some places, right? You might be getting 6.5% and you might be going, I'm just a neutral hold, I'm holding, but you're actually doing better than the market because traditionally it's 5.5 or 6%, and getting an extra 0.5% means you're already buying well. In certain areas, buy 6.5%, meaning that you're already buying behind the market. The market should be at 7 or 7.5, and you're buying in at 6%, which means that you are doing worse off than the market. And that's where you'd be making uneducated mistakes, right? So you got to compare that 6.5 and say, is it just yield? It's not just yield. How much growth do I get? How much increase in the rent would I get over time? What is the versatility of it if I swap out this tenant with something else? Can I make this premise 2? Does it have undervalue? All of these things you got to think about to make it, does the 6.5% justify for the property you're buying? Sometimes it's a great deal, sometimes it's not a great deal, right? And that's where yields is not a singular look, but it is a holistic overall look. And if you don't have the strategy, property criteria to back you up, and your long-term goals that you originally came up with, how do you know that is right? So yields return. So look at your cash flow base. A neutral hold may actually turn out better for you in 2 years' time by giving you substantial cash flow when the interest rate drops and the value goes up. Or you might find that the cash flow now may be better for your portfolio so you can access more equity. How is that worked out? Depends on your strategy, which is number 3, leads to number 4, which leads to number 5, calculating yields, right? So returns are not singular. Yields and cash flow blends in with everything else. So in commercial property, there's a lot more planning you need to do, a lot more consciousness around your investment. Remember, this is your road to financial freedom through commercial property. Do it right. You get there in half the time you do in residential. So that means that it's worth your while to just spend a little bit of time, invest in yourself, invest in the right community, the right mentors to guide you through that. And on that note, hit the bell, subscribe, join one of our events, links below, buy the book, do whatever you have to do to find out more on how to get into commercial real estate the right way, and don't make those costly mistakes that's going to keep you stuck in 2 years' time. So I'll see you on the next video. Comment, reach out to me, and I'll jump on a strategy call and I'll help you get to your destination through commercial real estate. Until next time, keep hunting, keep looking, keep researching, and keep learning. So on that note, hopefully it's been good. Post a comment and I will see you at the next video. Bye for now.